Here we go. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you're tuning in from. Hello, hello, hello. Let me get myself here. Okay. Okay, all good. All right, good to go. Hi. Thank you, Suzanne. I was like, oh, let's switch it up. I'll have my hair down. Okay. So I hope everyone enjoyed their weekend. Here we go. It has been incredibly stormy and incredibly hot. I know that we're not the only ones that are experiencing this heat wave. It's feeling, I think, a little cooler today, but it's been a while since I've had to have it's been a couple summers, I have to say, that since I've had to have the AC on kind of consecutively. Usually we like to run it on eco mode, which basically, for those of you who don't have like the eco mode function, it just kind of goes until it feels that the temperature is right, and then it shuts off, and then that's perfectly fine. And so we usually tried to keep the apartment like at 70 in the summer, because we don't want it to get too cold because of the plants. But it's been so hot. It's been so hot. So we had to have it where, we will kind of like fiddle with it. We'll bring it down to like 65, 68. And then I had to move some plants around. So it's been, yeah. And we've had to have like an extra fan going. I just bought a new, more high powered fan for our bedroom as well. Yeah, it's hot. It's hot. And I was just reading about yeah, just these spikes and all these people that are being affected. There's people, it's leading to fatalities. So it's pretty substantial. And so yeah, gosh. Oh no, Darlene. I'm so sorry. No air conditioning. Oof. Yeah, oh man. Yeah, and I've been seeing too that in the Midwest, apparently they've been having a drought as well, not only dealing with heat and smoke, but now, oh gosh, it's like the bingo card, right? It's like um but yeah, no, it's absolutely terrible. I ordered one plant, and I think I'm gonna avoid ordering other plants because I've been getting a lot of folks, um, letting me know, like folks within the plant community, just that it's been so hot that like plants are arriving like kind of like melted. um, I mean, succulents I feel do a really great have a good time, shipping. So like I was able to order this conophytum, but I've been hearing folks that are ordering things like types of philodendrons and things like that, and they're arriving in really bad shape. Uh, so I'm thinking, yeah, I'm gonna pause on asking for any plans for shipping, because I might just be setting myself up for failure there. Um, so then you should probably reconsider yeah, any houseplant shipping for now. And let's see how long this heat wave is going to last. I'm definitely worried about the plants, and I've been reading too, that a bunch of like cornfield crops are just kind of like crisping up and things like that. So that is terrible. But yeah, and yes, Suzanne, yeah, we are very lucky to have local shops, but I'm like kind of I'm trying to curb it down. in terms of my, adding to my collection. We have well over 300 plants. And especially now when we had to move all the plants and stuff because of how hot it's been, I was like, yeah, I've been calming down with my plant purchases. So I only have this one new little plant that I ordered, and then during the last week we were at the market, and I actually picked up this other plant that was just looking really rough, and I'm going to show you what I'm doing with another one of those in 2 seconds, but this is the one I ordered. So this is a conophytum. So this was on my wish list. It's a single one. So I need to pot it up because it got here on Saturday night. And so I opened up the box last night, and I was like, okay, I'll pot it up today. But this is a conophytum, so also known as a button, a button plant, or a button succulent. So it's not a cactus, but it is a succulent, and it has this kind of sheath. So this is like a protective layer here that helps trap the moisture inside. It's very similar to a lithops, right? So to what they call like the living stones. So it's this very like succulent type of plant, but as it gets a little taller, it ends up looking like bunny ears. And they're super cute. They're from South Africa. And so I only ordered one. Somebody was selling them for like $8 a piece. So I picked one up to kind of play around and see, but I just find it so adorable. I really love that red edge. So kind of similar to jade plants where they get that really bright red edge. So cute. So I'll be potting it up, and I'm still researching a little bit more on this one. So I know, of course, of very well draining soil, but they like a lot of kind of like sand and grit inside of it. But I have to check on the watering. So if it's like a lithops where I water like basically every couple months, or is this something where I kind of just look at the plant, see if it's wrinkly, and take my cues from the plant itself. So it might be a little bit more often. So we'll see. But it's absolutely adorable. So I'll keep you updated on how this little guy is doing. And it was really simply wrapped. The seller just put it into this kind of bounty, and then put it into its planter, and that was it. So no extra, but it was pretty neat. Oh, and the reason I saved this from like 2 weeks ago, and I completely forgot, and I kept telling myself, oh yeah, I was supposed to show everyone, and that's what was holding me back here. Oh, where did I put it? Brian might have moved it. I'll think for 2 seconds and I'll grab it. But basically, a few weeks ago, I had ordered, gosh, well, it was more than a few weeks ago. It was like a month ago. But I had ordered this type of philodendron, and it came in a styrofoam, like a little box. I'm trying to remember now where I put it. Yeah, I'll look for it in a second. But this is the plant that I found when I went to the market. So a phalaenopsis. I really like phalaenopsis. I recently rescued one where all the roots were completely rotten, and now I have to water it again. But I had cut off all the roots. I actually recorded that. I cut off all the roots that were rotted, and I was left with this. And so basically right now it's a little wrinkly, so that tells me that I need to give her another water. But I grabbed her to show you. So she is starting to come out with a new root. And what I've been doing while I needed her to she had so many roots that were rotted. So this was part of a set that I purchased from someone for $10. And she was just like, they're not doing very well, please help me. Like, just take them, give them a better life. So I was like, cool, I like these types of projects. So I grabbed those up from her, and yeah, sure enough, the roots were just rotting and did not look good at all. They were highly compressed in sphagnum moss. It was so like crispy, it was like cement. So I had to soak them up first to kind of loosen up the sphagnum moss, and then be able to kind of work the sphagnum moss away from the roots, and then so I can actually see the roots. And I had to cut so many because they were just jelly, like it was so bad. So this is what I ended up being left with the smaller one. And yeah, new roots are coming, a new root is coming out. And what I've been doing is I just plop it on top of I have a bowl with some stones, and I kind of plop it there. She gets all soaked up, her leaves get nice and perky, and then I leave her on one of my kitchen shelves. So for now, she's kind of living like that, just in the air. It's just an experiment, and so far it's been working really well. And I just look at her, I see, okay, you're wrinkly, it's time to water you. And she's putting out new roots. So once she's a little bit, is right now she's kind of wacky. Once she's a little bit more stabilized, then I'll consider putting her like in an actual container. But so far she's been living happily on my shelf. So I'm gonna keep that keep that going. But when I was at the shop, I saw this one and I couldn't help it. And it was only $6. And so I was like, all right, I'm a grabber. And I haven't done anything to her yet. So I just brought her home. She had a bunch of fried flowers on her that have since fallen. She had these that were just opening. So these look absolutely gorgeous. This is a Phalaenopsis. Absolutely beautiful. And she has several little flowers that were here. Let me see here. Yeah, there's a couple, I think, that have, here we go, they were all dried out, not looking very nice. But what made me really want to grab her up is just the state of her roots. It's pretty bad, and one of her leaves looks like it's damaged. Here we go. And yeah, so I'm gonna try to help her out because a lot of her roots are doing really well. Let me see if the light will catch it. So these nice plump light roots, these are good. These are healthy, good to go. But then you look up here and look at this root here. So this is all dried up here. So this is all healthy tissue. You can see where it stops. So you can see kind of where it stops here. This is all dehydrated. So it's just looking like she's having a little bit of a rough time, but she's quite beautiful. And I wanted to, yeah, give her a chance. So this is one of my projects this week. I'm gonna get her out of this sphagnum. Let me see if I can pull her out with minimal mess. Probably gonna mess up my entire desk. Hold on. Here we go. Oh, there was just a couple pieces here that fell. All right, but she is pretty compressed in here. You can just see, but overall she has pretty good roots, so it's not a complete loss or anything. But she is having a rough time. But it's like look how hard this moss is. It's like perfectly shaped to the pot. It's like completely, like, even if I hold the, like, it's so compressed. So that's one bad thing about sphagnum moss. Once it does dry, it becomes pretty rock hard. And so it's very difficult to work with when it's not moistened. So you do definitely need to make sure that you are, before anything you want to kind of let that soak. So I'll record the process. I recorded the process of cutting away all of these bad roots. I recorded that. So I've been trying to kind of keep a little diary on this one to kind of show its progress over the last few weeks. And I'll be doing the same, but this time I'll make sure to record how I separate it from the sphagnum, so that I can show everyone. But yeah, another little project. I'm gonna start my this program with the NYBG starting this upcoming Saturday. So they're sending me like a bunch of materials and things to read and review. Yeah, so I'm pretty excited, and I'll make sure to record. There's going to be a tour on Saturday, so I believe I'm supposed to be able to record it. So it's going to be behind the scenes. So there's like a new exhibit going on. So I'll try to get some footage, show that so that I can share with everyone. And the last orchid related thing I wanted to show you is just something fun that I keep on my desk. And it's this Lego Phalaenopsis orchid. So it's absolutely gorgeous. Look at those roots. Highly recommend these. I have a couple of these Lego plants that I just love as they come out with the collection. I've been grabbing, one of each. So I have the succulents in my bedroom, and then we have I had bought the one that's the bouquet of flowers, and then someone for my birthday bought me the same set. So what I did is I combined them. So I made that bouquet, and then I put both of them in a vase, and it's right by our entryway. So I have that one, and then now, yes, I did the Phalaenopsis orchid one, and it's just so cool. It's so neat. And what you do is you put little pieces here for the dirt, so it looks like your orchid wood chips. It's super cute, absolutely fun to have. Oh yes, Darlene, they make these kits, and it's so much fun. The most complicated part is this. There's like several sections to it. It kind of builds, it's like a whole unit. But then after you do that, then it's fine. It's this part is relatively easy. But yeah, the pot was the hardest, but it's so much fun. I love Legos, and we have a bunch of different sets. So when they came out with flowers, of course I had to grab one. So I wanted to show you these. Yeah, because this is awesome. Yes, Gabby, yes. We want to go to Philly. We don't have a date yet. We're thinking, we originally thought end of July, but for I'm going to be doing a walk. So if you're here for in New York City on July 22nd, I'll be posting the exact like location and everything, because the link that they sent me on Friday, it wasn't working. So I was telling the park that I needed a new link, but they said they couldn't get it to me till Monday. So I should have that new link, so I can put that up and share that with everyone. So I'll put it like on my Instagram, I'll put it on Facebook. But basically, it's going to be a free walk in celebration of Latino Conservation Week. So I'll be doing a walk through their woods. It's like a 2-hour walk. Of course, you don't have to stay the full 2 hours if you don't want to. But we're going to go and walk around the park. And then we're going to discuss the urban ecology and the local plants and the invasive species, for instance. And what I'm excited about, it's open for folks that speak English or Spanish. And so I'll be there to provide translation. And so Yeah, so that's going to be happening towards the end of the week. Sorry, towards the end of the month. And so then for Philly, so we're thinking maybe August, one of the August weekends, to go to Philly. So definitely send me some recommendations. Please, please, please. Because we're gonna be going I think for like basically like 2 days. So we're gonna be there for like the entire weekend. So yes, definitely send me. I know we're gonna stop by Ill Exotics. We have done so before. Ill Exotics is absolutely amazing. It absolutely gorgeous, a gorgeous plant shop. They also have live animals, so they also sell like isopods and different types of reptiles and amphibians. So they have like chameleons and geckos and frogs, and tarantulas as well. So they have like a separate room for that. Absolutely beautiful, absolutely. Oh yes. Oh no, the insectarium closed. Yes, oh definitely. I am very, very interested in that. Brian and I have actually been discussing, we're thinking about trying to see if we can start breeding the beneficial mites. So we have like different beneficial mites here. This is the one that was on that's on our elbow. And so you just hang the packet. So that's all you do. So it's like a little like one of those little deodorizers that you put into your closet and things like that. It just hangs like that on your stem. And there's like a teeny tiny hole here. It's hard to see. Teeny tiny hole. And then yeah, you just let this hang on your plant, and over the weeks, mites from inside the packet. There's kind of like a sawdust mix in here for them, and so they'll exit and they'll go onto the plant and they will annihilate anything that's on there. So we had an issue with thrips. We just lost a big leaf of our mayoi to thrips and a leaf to my obliqua. So I'm really upset about that because I literally caught it, and I thought, oh, maybe it's not too late. And then the leaf fell off. I washed it, I treated it. I thought it was good. And then like 2 days later, the leaf just fell off. I was like, oh, okay. So right now it has a new leaf that's coming out. And yeah, it has like a leaf that had been crispy when I bought it. It's still like the leaf is still there, but like the tip was really crispy. So the really nice leaf is the one that fell off. So we've been making sure to keep up with our mites. And so we're thinking about actually starting, because you can breed these. So we're gonna look into that. For those of you who might be interested in ordering these, so the brand is Beneficial Insectary. Insectary, there we go, Insectary. Really, really great. There are kind of group orders that we go into with other members of the plant community. And so it's like on Thursdays, we have to all have our orders in, and it's like a bulk order. So you could definitely see if somebody's doing that in your area, because it makes it much more accessible, because sometimes the shipping on these is ridiculous, because it has to be like overnight shipping or 2-day shipping to ensure that you receive the animals alive. So the shipping can end up costing like $30. So that's a lot for one person. But if you make a group order, then it's just split among everybody, and everybody ends up paying just a couple dollars. So definitely check that out. For the Ill Exotics, it's like Ill Exotics. Whoops. Exotics. Let me see, I can. Ill Exotics. Here we go. Let me show you real quick. I know I had shown a video the last time that we went. It was so cool. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Ill Exotics. yeah, so that's their logo. And they just have so much variety in there. They had some really cool plants, not only like philodendrons and things that Monstera, definitely plants you want to find. They were selling Epiprenum albos for like 15-20 bucks, that were pretty long and trailing, absolutely beautiful. Brian ended up getting one. Yeah, and it pretty good pricing, not for nothing, pretty really affordable pricing. So and then they have this area where you walk in and it's a bunch of tanks, and so they have all these kind of bioactive tanks with plants and the animals living inside of them. It looks so beautiful, and they have those like poison dart frogs, and the tarantulas, bearded dragons and chameleons, and absolutely beautiful geckos. So if you want to go, it's even just cool just to come in and look. So if you're in the area, in the Philly area, definitely check out Ill Exotics, because wow, absolutely amazing. Really cool place. Really cool. Yes, so with the beneficial insects, so as I mentioned, I do a group order. In terms of, for Ill Exotic, I'm not sure if they do orders. I'm not aware of whether or not they ship. I'm not sure if they ship. But for these beneficial insects, again, it's a group order that we go through that. So definitely look to see if that's something, or maybe you want to start a local group like that in your area, if that's something that's not readily available. If you have other plant friends and that a lot of you want to get some beneficial insects, then you're able to do like bulk orders that way. It ends up saving a lot of people a lot of money. So and we can get these packets. So let me see, these were, yep. You can get these packets and they end up being like $2 each or something like that. It's not $1, $2 each. So yeah, we have a couple packets that we just picked up, and so I have them. They're accessible. But yeah, you can totally order them. It's so awesome. Yes, Gabby, I believe it is. I believe it is on that avenue. Yeah, they're very cool. We might see if we have a flower shop here, Nellie's Flower Shop, that sometimes they carry ladybugs. So we might do another round of ladybugs, just to catch any potential leftover thrips. I panicked. Like it was like Wednesday or Thursday. I was watering the plants by the window, and I looked on our El Chaco red philodendron, and I thought I saw like a spider mite, and I freaked out, and then I realized it was running really fast. And then there was another one running really fast, and then I realized I have I have a beneficial mite packet on it to prevent anything. And so those were the beneficial mites. They're much bigger, they run much faster, they just like move a lot faster than let's say a spider mite would. And so, but that got my heart stopping it stopped my heart for a second. I was like, oh! And then I realized, no, there's nothing wrong with it. So that's something you do have to keep in mind is, when you have the beneficial mites on there, you will see the beneficial mites. And so you don't want to kill the beneficial ones. So kind of, you can watch videos on them, just kind of learn what they look like in comparison to what you don't want on your plant, so that you're not accidentally murdering, your little heroes. the friends, the insect friends that are, the mites and well, I think they're actually arachnids. But yeah, that they're in there. How long do these mites live? Yeah, for several weeks actually. So the packets will release the mites. The mites kind of make their way slowly out of the packets over about 6 to 8 weeks. So these mites are living a few months. Yeah. So it's for a little bit. Yeah, so it's not only a couple days. That's the problem with for instance, I had tried the beneficial nematodes. I had tried them, and you basically get a bunch of like a powder, and what it is, it's a bunch of eggs, and so you have to do it like in a bucket, and you essentially put the powder with some water, and you kind of let it sit for, I think, like an hour or something like that. And I know it wasn't like crazy long, but it was a little bit of time I had to let them sit. And then the way it works is that they are basically hatching, and then once they're becoming like kind of like rehydrated, and then what ends up happening is you take that water and then you water your plants. And so anything that might be in the soil at that time, so if you have like soil mealies, or basically, or you have a fungus gnat larvae, especially anything essentially that is really harming your plants that's in the soil, becomes its food. And so you basically water your plants, and the nematodes do not, yes, like brine shrimp, Suzanne, exactly. And they basically, they're just helping you out. But then the problem with that, though, is that once the soil dries out, they die. So yeah, that's like the downside, the downside of it. So it's not very long lasting. So they end up kind of working in your plants for only a couple days. Especially if it's summer, the plants would dry out rather quickly. And so it doesn't work very well in terms of like, the amount of work to how long they're actually viable in the soil. So I would recommend more so using beneficial nematodes. One, if your plant likes wet feet. So if it's a plant that's going to stay relatively moist, that's a whole other thing. I think that would probably work really well. And maybe also in hydroponic settings. So I would think that would be like the best type of situation. But yeah, I had tried that. And yeah, it was like I feel like it might have helped a lot of the plants that at the time had fungus gnat larvae. This was before I had learned, this was like 2017, 2018, before I had learned about all the different ways I could handle fungus gnats. I was at my wit's end. and I tried the beneficial nematodes because I had behind me before, I used to actually have a wall of peperomia. And what I didn't understand at the time was that I should have added supplemental lighting coming from the top. So as you can see, we do get a nice amount of sunlight that hits this wall. And so I had, but not that much in the winter. The sunlight does not hit this back wall in the winter. So hence why I have, my lights set up. And yeah, I had I just realized my lights turned off, and I don't know why they turned off. But yeah, I realized too late, essentially, that the soil just wasn't getting dried out. So the plants weren't able to kind of use the moisture that was in the soil adequately. So therefore the soil was staying wet for longer periods of time, which made, for one, the plants were not doing very well because peperomias, especially the ones that I had, like the obtusifolias, they're much more succulent peperomias. I did have a couple ripple peperomias, which are Peperomia caparata. And I did have a couple of those. They didn't mind that much, but the other ones did mind. The more succulent types of peperomia, they did not like being in kind of wetter soil. and they weren't doing well. And then there was fungus gnats everywhere. So this was a very big learning moment, because it was so bad. So I thought, okay, let me look up remedies, and I tried mosquito bits. And so I did this thing with mosquito bits where you let them soak overnight, and then you use that to water your plants. But again, I wasn't solving the issue, right? Which was that my plants weren't getting enough light and they weren't drying fast enough. And so if I had set up an overhead light, this would have saved a lot of those plants. But I didn't know that at the time. And so I tried the mosquito bits, and while I did see a decrease in the amount of fungus gnats, the soil was still staying too wet, and a bunch of them started getting mold, and that just was the death of so many of my peperomia plants. And yeah, I just realized that I basically created like the perfect storm, because there also wasn't adequate air circulation at the time either. Now, for recent years, like it was like summer of 2019, I think it was, when I started using the what's it called, standing fans that I have. And so that adds a lot more air circulation, so your plants aren't staying kind of like moist all the time. And of course, I have all these grow lights installed all around the house where they need that supplemental lighting. So I've definitely learned from that, but I just wanted to share that whole kerfuffle with my poor peperomias, and trying to deal with. And that's when I bought the nematodes as well. So I also had plants that were in our bedroom that had fungus gnats. So it was just, it was a nightmare. I did not know about like beneficial, like integrated, what is it? Integrated pest management. So I wasn't up to date on that. And so I had heard at that point, I had heard of like using ladybugs, but that was the only thing I knew. So I didn't understand about like, I didn't know about nematodes. I didn't know about mites. Yeah, so it's a learning journey. It's definitely a learning journey. But yeah, things can end up going wrong. You think you're helping the plants, and I was making it a lot worse. And I didn't realize. I was like, oh yeah, mosquito bits, I'll totally use that. And that did not work in my favor. But now that's what we use, is a combination. So of spot treatments when we are working with the plant, we're watering the plant, anything like that, is to do a quick, checkup of the plant. And then of course, do any spraying with rubbing alcohol, just to make sure it's all good to go. So if anything is on the plant that we're not seeing, we're at least helping kind of preventatively. So I'll give the plant like a nice assessment, see how it's doing, and then give it water. Basically do everything I need to do with that plant before I put it back in its place. And then it's good to go. And then we release periodically any types of beneficial insects that we can. So one that we're going to be getting fairly soon are more lacewings. So usually I will catch lacewings. I haven't seen any this summer yet. So I'm not sure if it's just been too hot or what's been going on, but usually now we're able to order them. So that's going to be one way we're getting them. But I used to grab just wild ones, because they always end up in our hallway here in the apartment building. They always end up in our hallway, and I have a big butterfly net. And so I would catch them and then release them in the house. And then on plants that I would see, like especially my Hoyas that were getting like mealy bugs at some point. gosh, that was oof. But they have the little egg casings that look really cool, and it looks like a little drop of water stuck on a string. It's a really interesting, let me see if I can show you what lacewing fly, green lacewing egg. Here we go. Whoops. There we go. So that's what their eggs look like. So if you ever see something like this on your plants, leave them be. So let them just hang out. Let them hang out, because they will hatch, and then they will protect your plant. So definitely don't rip them out, or wash it off and think you might have some type of pest. This is definitely a good sign. These are very ferocious little guys. They go to town, and just very, very, very effective. So if you do find these, that's awesome. So and they look like this. So very tiny. They don't harm you. I mean, they can pinch you. That's one thing, is they can pinch you, but they're not actively looking to hurt you. It's only if you are obviously grabbing them off the plant or something like that. But they stay on the plant. They're just interested in moving all up and down the plant looking for food. So they're little security guards. So you don't have to worry about that. Just let them do their thing. They definitely look really, really neat. and yeah, and don't worry. So, and this is what the adults end up looking like. So really gorgeous, like glass wings, really beautiful translucent wings, and these really bright, they look red, but I guess they're saying it's coppery, but really bright eyes, super cool. So this is these are the ones that I usually catch, and because they're hanging out in our hall downstairs. There's like a big globe light, which is very attractive to things like moths and different types of insects. And so these green lacewings always end up in our hallway in the summer. So it was always easy for me to just go grab the net, and I would just release them in here, and they would do their thing. But I have not seen one. So as of yet, I have not seen one. So I don't know. What I have seen is, I don't know if anybody else here, if anyone else is dealing with the spotted lanternfly larvae. They are absolutely everywhere. And let me see the spotted lanternfly. So these technically aren't flies. They're actually related to cicadas. So we were literally on Saturday, Brian and I, we were like, we were craving to go get McDonald's, and we walked into the McDonald's and they were literally jumping on the floors. They were everywhere. They were just hopping around. And there was ones that were this black and white stage, which is the nymph early stage, and the nymph late stage, so the red ones as well. And they were just walking around. And I personally hate killing insects. I hate it. If I find like a beetle in the house, or anything like that, I try to, I remove it. I just bring it outside. A moth, I always catch them and I just release them outside. I really hate, I mean, I don't want, non beneficial insects in our home. Thankfully, our building is great. We don't have any problem with like pests like that. But if I do end up, because we do leave like the bathroom window open, sometimes the kitchen window, so we'll get a couple beetles that end up finding their way, or some moths, sometimes a fly that we have to, Jules usually is pretty good at at swatting them. But it was, oh my gosh. So I really had a problem with that, but you have to step on them. You really have to kill them on contact, because they're so bad and they're spreading at such magnitude. Well, we were helping my brother move, and he had this plant outside, and it was absolutely covered. And we've seen with our neighbors, they have grapevines. We have a grapevine in our yard covered. So we were literally shaking it off and then just trying to kill them, as many as we could. It's really bad. It's really, really bad. And they're all over our parks. And so some people, I don't think, understand that they're affecting much more than just like a grapevine, right? This is not just a problem for someone has a winery. This is something that they're actually attacking, oak trees. They're attacking other types of trees that are not typically their food source. So they have they have pretty much started to spread. They made their way, now they're all over New York City. So if you do see these are not your friends. So these are really, really troublesome, especially if you see them in your garden. So these are not welcome. And right now New York City has a kill on contact like order on these types of insects. So if you do run into them, you do have to destroy them. So just however you're able to. With the large ones, last summer we do happen to have a tree of heaven out back. Now, we're just tenants, so we can't cut down the tree, but the landlord has let that tree grow for several years. But the tree of heaven is a non-native plant, so it's Ailanthus altissima. It's beautiful, tall, gorgeous tree. However, it shouldn't be here. But it also ends up that it's one of the host species for lanternflies. So a lot of insects and plants, they co-evolved over the millennia, and so some plants serve as host species, and they are needed for the life cycle of certain insects. So some insects are what are known as generalists. So that means that they will eat basically anything. So your house plants, perfect. They don't mind. It's food to them, and they could really care less. Then there's other types of insects which are more specialized. So they might focus on specific types of plants. And with especially during the hosting time, so when it's from an egg to like a nymph or a larva, for some of these, it needs to be a specific plant to start off, or a specific group of plants. And the problem is that these trees of heaven are one of those host plants for the spotted lanternfly, and it's one of the most abundant non-native trees here. And so unfortunately, it just helps them spread. So Brian and I last year during the summer, when these started emerging, the adults, we have these electric rackets that we had purchased that are like for mosquitoes, and we were having to use them in our yard to try to take down as many of the adults that we could, because it was so full. Our tree was completely, like, it was so bad. It was so bad. So I hope you aren't dealing with this in your gardens. I hope you haven't seen any of these, definitely. But here in New York City, I mean, they're everywhere. We were in our WeWork too, and I like to work out on the terrace, and they were just hopping around, and it was the nymph early stages, so the brown one with the white dots. They were just hopping around. I don't know how they got there, because there's no trees or anything on that level. It's a second floor terrace. There's no plants, and they were just there hanging out, jumping around. So yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. So keep an eye out, definitely. And yet learn about, if that's something that interests you, learn about the any invasive species that your county or city might be alerting you to, because sometimes these have to be reported. So you do have to report when you see them, so that the Parks Department has a better kind of idea as to the spread, the trajectory of the spread, kind of helps them figure out maybe areas that might not be affected yet, that they can try to, do something preventatively. In regards to how you would handle these, if you do have them in your garden right now, one very effective way is, it's like a double-sided glue trap. Sorry, a double-sided tape type of thing, but one side is like really thick. It's like a glue trap, and what you do is you put it around your tree. This is temporary, so you would not leave this on your tree, because you don't want to put tape or put things on your tree that's going to be long term, because moisture actually gets stuck behind it because there's no air flow, and then you end up rotting your tree out. So you definitely don't want to do this in the long term, but during the breeding season now, that's good to go. But you do that, and basically as they are walking up your tree, they get stuck to the trap. So it has been found that this is a pretty effective way of at least catching large groups of them. There's also folks that are going out with like vacuums, but there's specialized vacuums for insects, but other people are just using regular vacuums and just sucking them right out off their plants. I mean, hey, that's effective. There is also, you can use things like a water bottle. So if you do have a plastic water bottle, that's another way to actually catch them fairly easily. So they're unable to jump backwards. They can only jump forwards. So if you put the bottle right in front of them, with the opening right in front of them, and then kind of scoot them, they will just automatically jump into the bottle. And so folks are just catching a bunch of them, and then they put them in the freezer. And there you go. So you end up kind of euthanizing them that way. So there's options, but this is one of those insects that are very, very worrisome. And it's very difficult when there are invasive species introduced. So even just last week we were driving to Albany, and there were just swaths of dead trees. And so I was Googling, like, why are there's all these dead trees here along the sides here? And there were several articles just about like emerald ash borer, for instance, that was also an introduced species. And it doesn't just attack ashes either. It attacks other types of trees as well. And there were just like just big chunks of dead trees. And then now, I remember pre-COVID, it was like 2018, 2019, I saw this presentation by this scientist who was working with woolly adelgid, which is it kind of looks like mealy bugs. The woolly, I think adelgid. Adelgid, here we go. Here we go. And so it looks very much like mealybugs. So you would think, oh my gosh, my hemlock has mealybugs. And yeah, it's been spreading. And so he was talking about how he projected that it would be in the city essentially fairly soon. And sure enough, our plants are being affected, and yeah, there's they're getting hit pretty hard. So even at the botanical garden, there were some trees that were hit. So yeah, it's slowly but surely they're making their way, but they really look like mealybugs. So just so that you can see what that looks like. And yeah, and look at this. It's just this map here. pretty bad. So, yeah, like he was just saying how bad it was. So he was tracking it basically as it's moving northward. And he was just saying that he, expected that we would be hit really, really hard in the next few years. So looks like we did have cases, before 2015, but now yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. Oh no, Sharon is saying I had a bunch of disembodied wings in my basement that I assumed were termites. Could they have been lace wings? It would save me a fumigation. No, that would definitely, lace wings won't lose their wings like that. And so that I would definitely try to see if you can have an inspection for termites. So termites, yes, they will. So termites will have those wings. They will kind of fly around, and then when they either find, I think they find a new location, it's kind of like they swarm and they find a new location and then they drop those wings because they no longer need to be able, like, for transport, so that they lose all their wings like that. So I would definitely at least get an inspector to come and check if there might be termites, because yes, that is definitely very, very typical of them. Yeah, termites are, yeah, here we go. So this is what they'll look like. And they kind of look like ants, when you're seeing them like that with the wings. But yeah, they'll drop their wings. And yeah, once they find like a place. Yeah, so after they've dropped their wings. Yeah, so I think that's the only insect that I'm aware of that drops its wings and then continues to survive. If anyone else knows of some insects that do that too, let me know. But that's the only insects I know that drop their wings. Yeah, so far, yeah. That's all I can think of. But yeah, definitely check. Because that could become a problem. So have someone do an inspection, because that you might end up needing the fumigation. Definitely. Let me see here. And Darlene, about the Phalaenopsis not reblooming. Yeah, so I don't know, the Phalaenopsis, I've had quite a few over the years. I think out of the few I've had over the years, I maybe have had like 2 or 3 bloom again after like their initial bloom. So it's very hit or miss, but it tends to happen when it's cooler, for some of the Phalaenopsis that I have had that bloomed. So I think the ones that you buy in the store, they're put in conditions to kind of trigger that blooming. But yeah, the Phalaenopsis, I think they ended up blooming like around October, November. So it was like the days were getting shorter and the temperatures were getting much cooler. So we were hitting about like 60 to 65 in the house. I just looked over at our little thermostat thingy, and it says now that it's 83 degrees in here. But we have the AC and we have the fan going, so I don't feel that right now. I just looked and was like in disbelief because it says it's 83.1. Let me see over there. I can't see it. 82.0. What's behind me? 80. But they're all saying it's over 60%. So that one says 61% humidity. Behind me says 63% humidity. But I don't feel it. It feels really nice in here right now. Enough where I can have my hair down and I can wear a t-shirt and I don't feel like I'm boiling. So it feels very nice in here. So it's kind of surprising. how warm it's saying that it is. But yeah, like it's we've been trying to kind of keep everybody cool. Yeah, so Darlene says that my former neighbor had hers in a north window and it seemed like one or two were always in bloom. Yeah, so sometimes you can they really like that the cooler temperatures. And I mean, there are certain types of grow lights you can use that could actually trigger your plants to bloom. So like red wave. If you're getting lights that have specifically like that red light, the red wave light, that can actually be very triggering for plants to flower and to produce fruit. So this is very common for folks if you're trying to grow your own like tomatoes indoors or peppers or things like that. So if you get like a full spectrum light, that's great because it has all of those, basically all waves of light. So the blue is available. So usually those blue wave lights are really great for starting growth, to promoting growth. And then the more red is for kind of triggering that part of the life cycle for flowering and getting fruit and generating fruit. But I mean, that does put a lot of stress on the plant. So be very aware of that. And so A. Aguilar says, mine starts blooming in the spring. Once the flowers open, they last for 6 months or more. That's awesome. I apply fertilizer in the spring and then every 1.5 months after. That is awesome. Yeah, they are long lasting flowers when they do come out. Definitely 6 months is crazy. That's awesome. I don't think I've ever had them last like 6 months. I've had African violet flowers, I feel, that have lasted like 2 months. Like they were just blooming consecutively for like 2 months. But 6 months with the Phalaenopsis, that's awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, no, definitely I haven't had that luck. They'll bloom and it'll be a couple weeks, but definitely not 6 months. That's awesome. Oh, you have the special touch with Phalaenopsis. They're so much fun, but quite a few of the Phalaenopsis that I do have right now, like this is the only one with flowers. Everybody else are still leaves right now. So yeah, no. My mom and her partner, he's obsessed with orchids. I had recorded some footage of him, but then he got sick right before we were leaving. And so he was supposed to do some close-ups for me. So I know he has some plants blooming right now, so I'll ask him so I can kind of wrap that up so I could post that. But yeah, I talked to him about orchids and why he was interested in orchids, and he was showing like all these variety of orchids that he had, really crazy ones, and he has that touch. And he was making these really cool pots out of bamboo. So he would buy like, like these the bamboo, kind of like the canes of bamboo, and basically they were a little pretty thick, so he would hollow them out. Well, they were pretty hollow, but he would like clean them out and then sand them, and then he would put like a kind of like make like a little canoe, it looked like. He would kind of cut one part, and then he was putting string, he would drill holes into them and he would hang them like that. And so then it was like a little raft for his orchids. And he has like all these cool, he has like those, he has some that are just in like a cocoa coir type of mix, and there's actually ferns growing out of them. A lot of them are hanging from my mom's lemon tree, and so she has a nice little lemon tree in the back, and he just has these baskets like that, and he's mounted a bunch of different types of orchids that he has there. So it's just nuts. He really has this touch, and they're all so different, remarkably different. The flowers, really, really cool. I'm gonna ask him. I'll follow up with him and see if he can record a couple close-ups for me so that I can make this video. And A Aguilar, I could not believe at first, but I tagged them with dates of the bloom, and that's why I know that they could last 6 months or more. That is amazing. That's a really good idea. Putting them, having like a little tag that has the dates of the blooms. That's really, really smart. Because then you can you can definitely better track that. Bride and I, we've been currently discussing, because what we're thinking, what we're aiming towards is basically creating kind of like QR codes or like barcodes. I'm thinking like a QR code that we would basically print a bunch of different QR codes on labels, but like little circular labels. And then I would plop one on each plant, and then we would do the QR code, and then you basically name it. So we would call it, let's say, Phalaenopsis number 4. And so then if I grab the plant and I wasn't sure how long have I watered it, I could scan it, and then it'll tell me when was the last time that I scanned it. Or I could also have it lead to a spreadsheet where I would enter the details. I think it's much easier if I just scan it and it kind of just tells me, oh, you scanned it a week ago, and then I know, oh, all right, yes, definitely it's time to soak it. Because again, we have so many plants, and Brian, because he started building his collection, he's definitely been helping a lot with watering and maintenance of the plants. But then the problem with that is then I'm not aware of what plants he's working with. And so I'll be working in a section, because I like to work by section, and I'll be watering the plants, and then I'll notice that one of the plants is the soil is still wet. And so I'll be like, wait, did you water somebody in this area? Because I like to group them in terms of watering needs. And so you say, oh yeah, it looked a little parched, and so I watered. And so I'm like, okay, just let me know. Because if I hadn't checked, right, the soil, that's why it's very important to check your soil. So don't just go by your schedule, right? If oh yeah, I should water this plant every 2 weeks, let's say, always make sure to check the plant, especially if other folks live in the household, because somebody might have watered one of your plants and you don't realize. One big indicator is also the weight of the plant. So as their soil, their substrate dries out, the plant pot becomes like really, really light, versus when it's fully saturated with water, you will notice that the pot feels pretty heavy. So if it still feels pretty heavy, and you know how it feels like when it's all dry, then wait, if the plant needs to dry out completely, because somebody might have added water in there, and you hadn't realized. Holly says, when you cut an indoor tree, like an umbrella tree, to stimulate bushy branching, instead of vertical, can you, or when should you cut, when should you cut a indoor tree like an umbrella tree to stimulate bushy branching instead of just vertical growth? When? So I mean, now in terms of when's the best time to prune back your plants if you want to encourage growth is definitely during the growing season. So if you're experiencing your summer, for instance, right now, this would be the best time, because this is when there's adequate light to encourage all that extra growth. So definitely in terms of like the seasonality, yes, growing season time is the best time. And yeah, for umbrella trees, you can do that. They do have do umbrella trees, I feel like they have or maybe they don't. No, I think that's rubber trees. About the latex, I don't think Scheffleras have the latex. But for other trees that are indoors, like ficus plants, so rubber trees, that you would cut some of those plants do release a white latex, like a white kind of sap. And sometimes this could be very irritating to your hands. So if you're ever going to cut a tree that you might have, just quickly check to see if there are any, like there's any sap or anything that you have to be necessarily worried about, because you don't want to accidentally, burn yourself or something like that. So you don't want to harm yourself. But yeah, with the umbrella tree, I mean, during the summer, do you have to protect the cut? I mean, yes, in terms of protecting, the most you could really do is if you were to do a spray with rubbing alcohol or some diluted hydrogen peroxide. But when you do that cut, that tissue layer will basically die off. Especially so if you're spraying it with like alcohol or anything like that, it kind of just cauterizes it. And yeah, no growth will come from that point. It'll grow around that point. So you could do that. Unfortunately, I've tried to look that up. If there's something like Neosporin for plants. So if I needed to cut a leaf or something, and I wanted to try to make sure that there were no pathogens or anything like that that would harm the plant. And I saw that there are like chemical types of things that you can add that might reduce the like a type of infection for the plant. However, it's not something that's readily available. It's more where you have to pay for services to like have an arborist come and cut a piece of your tree down, and then they would apply it. So it's not something that is readily available, unfortunately. But rubbing alcohol works really well. And if you're going to use hydrogen peroxide on your plants, please dilute it. I like to use like 4 parts water and 1 part hydrogen peroxide. So it's very, very diluted. Hydrogen peroxide can be very corrosive. So it can really burn your plant. And it can really harm your roots. So if you ever do a hydrogen peroxide drench, oh, thank you so much. Brian brought me caffeine. But if you do end up ever doing a hydrogen peroxide drench, so let's say there's something going on in your roots, there's some type of pest, you can do a hydrogen peroxide drench, but again, it has to be very, very diluted. And you want to only do 1 drench per 6 months. And always remember that when you're doing that drench, you're killing all the good things as well as the bad, unfortunately. It's kind of like taking antibiotics. So where you end up not only going after, what you intended to harm, but then also any beneficial gut bacteria that you have. And with plants, any beneficial microbes, anything they might have in their soil that has established itself and is helping the plant, especially also mycelia. So if you did sometimes some beneficial fungi will actually occur in your plants. They might put out some mushrooms, and this is harmless to your plant. But if you were to use a hydrogen peroxide drench, that does kill all of that as well. So be aware of that. Yes, and JZ, the sap of many zone 10 plants that are commonly used as houseplants are very toxic to pets. Yes. So there are quite a few. So even things like euphorbia, off the top of my head, euphorbia is one. Basically all the ficus, all like philodendrons, monsteras as well. They don't have a necessarily really runny sap, but they do have a sap that once you cut them, you might, it might drip a little bit, and then it's pretty quick. Unlike something like with the ficus, where you might get a lot. The same with euphorbia. But yeah, those are really, really toxic, and they can be very dangerous to you as well. I was a few months ago, I was reading a study on euphorbia where there were folks that were because where it originally is in parts of Africa and Asia, but there were like some kids that were playing, and I guess they knocked their ball or something towards some, so it was like a bunch of case studies, and they broke off like a piece of the plant as they were pulling their toy out, and it led to some partial blindness. So if the kids got sap on their hands, it's very irritating, for one, but then if they rub their eyes, it could, yeah, it causes like damage to the cornea and things, like burns it. Really scary. So with euphorbia, with all these plants though that do secrete like this sap, like the ficus, euphorbia, what's a really cool trick that I learned was to have a cup of ice water. So you don't have to actually have ice in it, but just like really, really cold water, but not a full cup, just a little bit. So it's just a shallow amount. And what you do is that you kind of pluck that in, and it very quickly stops the plant from kind of leaking, essentially. And then once it's done, you can pull it out and of course throw away the water. Throw away the water. Don't use a cup that you would ever consider drinking from. This would be a disposable cup. So definitely don't ever try to drink out of that again. Don't. Holly, and what do I do with the cutting? So it depends. So some trees you are able to propagate that way. With Schefflera, I believe you can. So you can propagate them. You can pop them into some water, like into a water propagation. I know with plants like with ficuses, so with a fiddle leaf fig or a rubber tree, these you can cut them, and then you can put the baby, now the new little baby ficus, into the pot with the parent. That's totally fine, and it'll root there, so that's not a problem. So you can absolutely do that. So it's just certain trees that people have in their homes will not propagate that way. There are certain, like especially more woody type of trees, you might have to get like the newer growth for it to actually be viable for propagation. It needs to be like more vegetative growth, like more green. It hasn't like hardened yet. Sometimes once a branch is like hardened, it might not work for some species. There are other plants like willows, for instance, that you can literally cut up the branches and you'll be fine. There's a bunch of little branches that will totally propagate really, really easily. So always make sure that you know the exact variety of your plant before you're cutting, so that you don't assume, right, that, oh yeah, I can totally propagate this, because you might not be able to. So double check before you make the cut. Another option though, outside of just cutting the plant like that, is sometimes you could do aerial root like propagation, so air layering. And so what this looks like, I can show you here. So air layering is you would make a wound on the plant. Of course, anytime you're using any tools on your plant, scissors, a scalpel, anything, please make sure to disinfect it. So spray it down with rubbing alcohol. I personally use 70% rubbing alcohol, so 70% strength. And I would definitely recommend that you do so, because you don't want to transfer anything into your onto your plants. So here's a couple ways that it can be done. I typically see it done like this with the plastic bag method. And Julia is singing in the background if you can hear her doing opera. Our neighbor is an opera singer. So she'll copy her. But here you can see an example. So this is with a rubber tree with ficus. And so what you can do is you basically make a wound, and then you can put like some types of substrate mix. So some people will use like this, like a soil mix. Other people will use something like coco coir, or even just sphagnum moss. And it's kind of moistened, but not like super drenching, like not dripping, but a little moist. And then it's secured with some type of plastic bag, and the roots basically start to generate from that wound. So it starts with what are called adventitious roots. And then you have to be pretty patient because it'll take a little bit. But because it's clear plastic, you can see when the roots are, like this one where they're fully developed, and then it's time for you to make the final cut. So you would actually sever it from the mother plant, but now it's a cutting that already has roots. So it kind of gives it a little bit of a leg up, right? It's a little bit more prepared for that new life on its own. I have seen people do this. I have not used this contraption myself. If anybody has, please let me know. How did you like it? I am worried about the black one, the opaque one, because I wouldn't be able to see anything. I have seen them selling them that are just completely black. It looks like this one is one side is one color and one side is the other. But I feel like I would just prefer the whole thing to be clear. I would worry too much, like what's happening on the other side. But yeah, they have these now. And so it's supposed to help the process, and they're reusable. So I mean, I do like the sustainability of this type of option, but I have not used it personally. So if anyone here has used this personally, let me know what you thought. Did it work really well? My worry is just, I guess with the plastic bag, you could still encourage rot regardless, but I'm not sure. I'm hoping that this would work. So let me know what your if you ever try this. But yeah, there's these little things now that you can purchase. But yes, the plastic bag version is the one that I'm used to. And yeah, you can do that. So this would be, rather than just like one cut, is you kind of prepare it for the propagation by having it, stimulating it to create those roots. And then you make the cut after the roots have been established. So that is an option. So you could do that definitely with like figs. As you saw, this person was doing, I think in the image, they're roses that they're doing that with. So there are certain species you can do this with. So that might be something to consider. Now, again, there are certain trees like palms and things like that you cannot do this with. This would not work with those types of plants. So just double check the species before proceeding with this type of experimentation, because that would just be heartbreaking if you cut the plant and then realize after that it won't propagate. I had this happen with someone who was helping me like get some plants ready for propagation. And it was a few years ago, and it was for some pothos vines. And so I had thought that the individual knew about the nodes, and so that was my fault. But sometimes they cut a bunch of leaves basically with no nodes, and then that wouldn't propagate. So yeah, always I should have mentioned it. I thought, because they were like, yeah, totally, I know how to do this. So always double check, so that you don't end up, yes, with a bunch of leaves that you wouldn't be able to propagate. And now with something like a fiddle leaf fig, as we've mentioned previously, the fiddle leaf fig leaf will root for you, and it'll last a little bit actually, but it just will never grow into a tree. So yeah. Jay-Z says, I have friends that use the lightweight plastic containers from berries that come in the propagation store for propagation. That is smart. That is a great little container. I've also used containers that like cake and things come in, like different desserts. Those make really, really good propagation containers. Gosh, I've experimented with like soda bottles. Yeah, different types of like takeaway containers as well. So you can definitely make those work. Upcycling. Upcycling, definitely. However, you can reuse, especially plastic containers. That's the best way to go about it. um, you can definitely use them. Absolutely. The berry containers, they're very similar to the containers that like cherry tomatoes come in. All really, really great. I grow my springtail colony is in a old like takeaway container that had, I think it was like originally miso soup or something. Upcycling just and yeah, any plastic containers like those little like the Chinese food, the little containers, I'm trying to remember, are they like a pint? I think they might be like a pint. But basically those I have a little stack of them and I use them when I'm watering my plants. So definitely repurposing that. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. I just saw it's turned 1. I'm gonna have my matcha. It's a little hot, so I'm gonna give it a couple minutes. But thanks so much for tuning in. I will keep you all updated about NYBG. I'm hoping that I will be able to record the tour so that I can show you next Monday. So if they don't allow me to record the tour itself, I will still be bringing like I have like a little gimbal thing, for my phone. So I'll be bringing everything and at least recording going to the garden and some new, like at least the new exhibit, so that I can share that with everyone, because it's been a couple months since I've been back at the garden. So I'm pretty excited. I think the last time I went, it was still like winter. So I haven't seen the new installation, and we missed the orchid show this year. I think it wrapped up at the end of February. And so we missed it this year. So I'm like really excited to go and yeah, and check out the new exhibit. I saw that they have like sculptures of like vultures and things and like different birds, it looks like. So that's super interesting because again, I love birds. So it'll be a cool juxtaposition of that. So I'll record that. Yeah, and then I can kind of upload a little tour video for anyone who wants to check that out. Yeah, it's such a beautiful place. So I'm really excited to have this opportunity. And yeah, there's going to be a lot of educational content coming your way. So I'm super excited. So thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Monday. Enjoy the rest of your week. And for those of you that are in areas that are experiencing these heat waves, I hope you're staying cool. It's pretty bad out there. So please stay safe. And yeah, I'll see you next week. And have a great one, everyone. Bye for now.